This is Speaking of Writers. I'm Steve Richards. Kishawnie Henry, A.K.A. Billy Blasta, was born and raised in the Virgin Islands, growing up in the housing projects of Paul M. Pearson Gardens, A.K.A. the Ghettos. He became a product of his environment and was shot and paralyzed at the age of 17. Being removed from the physical aspects of the streets, he developed a passion for writing. With music being his first love, he wrote and produced several mixtapes and albums before deciding to explore his talent in writing a book. And his first book is out now. It is called Dark Paradise. And we welcome Kishawnie Henry to Speaking of Writers.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So what gave you the idea, Kishawnie, to write this book?
What made me want to write the story is that I've a history of stories in my head, and I've known of a lot of things that happened in the Virgin Islands, and I pretty much wanted to write a story because, like you said, I have a passion for writing. It would be easy to portray a story that everyone can pretty much relate to. It has a lot of violence and drug stories because of the environment that I came from. So I wanted to pretty much share that side of it and give the readers something to be interested in and look forward to.
So, Kishawnie, this is a fictional novel based on true events. Talk about the story a little bit.
Well, the story is based off of three kids growing up in the housing projects of Paul and Pearson Gardens, and pretty much going through the struggles and trials and tribulations of pretty much inner city youths. If this story was based in America, it would be based off of kids growing up in the city. So pretty much it's pretty much the same. We've kind of Americanized in the islands, so a lot of the same things that they went through in America, we go through in the islands as well. So with not many influences for the guys to look up to, they pretty much turn to the streets, turn to the drug dealers, turn to all the negative elements that comes with the streets. So it's a true tale.
So take me to Paul M. Pearson Gardens, A.K.A. the Ghetto. What's it like?
It's a small, knit community. Everyone pretty much gets along with everyone until they don't. Everyone has disagreements that they might have, it might come across. But it's a quiet community until, well, back in that era, it was pretty much live. It's pretty much had a lot going on, a lot of parties, a lot of excitement. So a lot of kids were outside and they seen the excitement that was going on the turf. What we call the turf is where pretty much all the drug dealers would hang out, all the everyone from the outside would come in. So it would be pretty much like an event, like an event going on. It was pretty much live at the majority of the times.
Yeah, this story is based in that era of the late 80s and 90s during the crack epidemic that plagued America. What were the effects that it had on the Virgin Islands during that time?
Well, it had a pretty big effect because the Virgin Islands is a small place, 32 square miles. So with an epidemic so large and it spread so fast, it kind of interrupted a lot of family lives. It interrupted a lot of neighborhoods, and caused a lot of people to be hooked on the drug, on crack.
We're chatting with Kishawnie Henry here on Speaking of Writers. His new book is Dark Paradise. Let's talk about the characters and the names of the characters. How did you come up with those names?
Well, the names are from a lot of my deceased friends and family. So I have a lot of friends that's passed on. So as far as keeping their memories alive and not to incriminate anyone, because it is based on some true events, but a lot of my friends and family are deceased. So I pretty much use their names to tell a story and to captivate the audience, to keep them intrigued, because a lot of the names are familiar from the Virgin Islands. So a lot of people, when they read and hear the names, they'll be pretty much intrigued by the story, and they can follow it along a lot easier.
Kishawnie, how were these characters raised, and what was their environment like?
Well, they were raised in pretty much good households. housing projects, even though it has a stigma of being pretty much a housing product below the poverty line or what may have you, but the kids growing up, they still had good households. One of the characters, he was raised with a mother and father in a household, very educated. The other character was raised with a mother only, but she worked hard and tried to give him everything that he needed to be a happy child growing up. So pretty much the environment is what pretty much corrupts the characters, but their household and upbringing were pretty solid.
I mentioned this is your first book, Dark Paradise. What was it like completing this first book, and did you keep a journal?
I did not keep a journal, but I actually kept some, kind of, I would say kind of, sort of. I did kind of sort of keep a journal because a lot of the information that I gathered in my head, I had to write down so I could remember. And a lot of, I've had conversations with a lot of my friends that are still around and that were around in that era. And we would talk and have conversations about that era and things that happened. And I would kind of said, okay, I kind of put everything into a story. So everything is not straight line pinpoint as far as the character's name and the story and the situations that they went through. Everything is pretty much put together, so nothing falls in line as how they live their lives.
Of course, Americans know the Virgin Islands, known for vacation, beauty, paradise. What's the main message, Kishawnie, that you'd like the listening audience to know about this book?
Well, pretty much the story exposes the dark side of paradise and shows the trials and tribulations that some youths face growing up and on a small island where the crime, drugs, and violence is prevalent. So it shows the corruption throughout the Caribbean because the characters pretty much travel throughout different islands to gain a better life or to gain a better financial situation. So as the characters travel in search of that fast money, they gain the status. To gain status, the consequences that follow. So also, I wanted the readers to pretty much gain awareness for the youth of today that's living the life of any of the characters that's in the book, for them to take heed because the outcome can be very similar.
What is this place like now, the Paul M. Pearson Gardens? It's
a lot quieter than what it was in that era. As far as the crime and violence and the crack is not as common as it was back then. So there's a lot more control, it's a lot more subtle. So it's not a whole lot of crime and violence that goes on as it did back in that era.
I mentioned in the introduction, Kishawnie, that music was your first love. You wrote and produced several mixtapes and albums before deciding to explore your talent in writing this book, Dark Paradise, your first book. So did you have fun writing it, and can we expect something else from you?
Yes, I had a lot of fun writing it. It took me back to a place that was exciting at the moment. It took me in touch with the characters. Like I said, a lot of them are deceased, so it brought back a lot of memories that I had with the characters. And yes, I'm looking forward to doing a sequel or getting into screenwriting. Where I can turn it into a series or a movie. So, yeah, I'm very excited. I'm optimistic for the future.
He is Kishawnie Henry, A.K.A. Billy Blasta. The book is Dark Paradise. And by the way, you can get this book at writersrepublic.com, writersrepublic.com. Also Amazon as well, and Barnes & Noble?
Yes, sir.
All right, so at Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble as well. The book is Dark Paradise. His first book, Kishawnie Henry. Thank you so much for joining me.
All right, thanks for having me.
And this is Speaking of Writers.